The first wave of the computing revolution actually was worried about the codification of knowledge. It was worried about actually the storage of knowledge, about the storage and transmission in the form of information, in the form of data, and that was a very, very crucial thing. The second revolution required that so much of codification had to be done. We were reinventing one of the most important social institutions of man, which is the library. And it is such an important institution. Whole cultures have been destroyed with the destruction of a library. Because with it, its entire history, for example, has sometimes got wiped out when the library has got wiped out. So the reinvention of the human library itself was such a very big thing, and it enabled computing, it enabled a lot of manipulation of data. All of computing is manipulation of knowledge, of data. It is manipulation of modes of representation. All of it is very, very valuable and important, no doubt about it. And then came the next stage, which is the internet, which actually said that yes, how do I communicate it effectively? How do I transmit it, and how do I have people access it, and access it in multiple ways, and how do I now create shared libraries across people, and how do I then create ways in which people can engage with that knowledge in shared methods. And suddenly in the last decade we have seen that the definition of knowledge has also gone on changing. I remember in '96 people still talked in terms of saying that whatever content was offline, how do I put it online? 96, 98, 2000 perhaps. Today, for example, Facebook and all says there is a creation of knowledge which is so fresh and new, and there are different forms of knowledge. There are personal knowledge which actually had no libraries were holding it other than government databases. And that too not in the form, that not in terms of likes, dislikes, feelings, friendships, relationships, none of this was talked about. All this has meant that new forms of knowledge have got created. Have been, if I may use the word, have been given a certain standing, a certain status. Earlier, those forms of knowledge were not given any standing. They were told, oh, only that which is formally frozen as real knowledge, or that is treated as knowledge which is certified as knowledge, that will be shared and held. Even in a library, only the books that a librarian asked for were kept. So that actually there were gatekeepers for the creation of knowledge and for the storage of knowledge. In the last 5 years, 10 years, even that has broken down. A Facebook is as valid a form of knowledge as any other form of knowledge. And your own personal knowledge is also the world's knowledge. Google does not distinguish between the two when it is searching out for stuff. If you have said something about yourself, your own views, that is treated as valid or equal to a paper which is published in Harvard Business Review. There is no distinction at that level. These are all very wonderful things that have happened. Actually, they are extraordinarily special things that have happened in the last 4 decades. Now that all this is coming into place, man naturally, because that is the nature of man, that once he has reached the limits, he actually starts crossing the next limits. In 20 years ago, a man called Richard Saul Verman wrote a book called Information Anxiety. Not 20, 10, 12, 14 years ago. 12, 14 years ago, he was, and it was designed, the book was designed by a guy who was actually teaching at Stanford and was teaching usability design at Stanford for many years thereafter. That guy also set up one of the first web studios which was actually supposed to be very famous, called Vivid Studios. And he was the first guy who called himself an internet experience architect. This was in 96, 97. So the point that is being made now is that this question of information anxiety is becoming obvious. That is the first starting point of assimilation issue. That is the bridge between these two worlds. That I suddenly realize that I don't have a shortage. That this is not a constraint anymore. This constraint has been removed. The day the constraint of access gets removed fully, Then man gets ready. It is just like this. After you have unlimited food, until you are poor and you don't have food, you say, give me food, give me food, give me food. The day you have food, then you start worrying about diets, right? But then you realize that if I overeat, then I can actually have trouble. That is what starts happening. So now mankind is beginning to reach a point where it is ready to say that, oh, I better now worry about assimilating and digesting this and not simply gorging on that food. Teachers, in all my interactions over the last 2 years, I must have run workshops and interacted thereby with about 1,000 teachers. 1,000 teachers, but one question that they keep coming out with is that they say that if students have information, they have access to internet, everything, then what am I supposed to do? So that question comes up. If earlier they were providers of access, now they are asking if access they are anyway getting, then what am I supposed to do? What is my role in this light of this? If you take an engineering college in anywhere, if they find that anyway you can get access to IIT Profs ka engineering classes, I can get access to MIT ka study material, if I am going to get access to material from all over the world, then mera kya rahega? Then what do I have to worry? Then what is the role of that teacher there? And that is when the question of assimilation starts awakening and getting ready. So what I want to also point out is that the first question of awakening of assimilation as a challenge is just opening up in society. So historically, if you look at it from one point of view, the timing is because until this is done, this is not ready yet. And now we are entering a phase where this is going to become a very central key figure in the way people are thinking.